Had a baby. Mr. McQuistion.
Yes, sir.
Is that is that actually the right pronunciation?
McQuistion, yes.
It's Irish as hell.
MC Question.
Yeah, well, we got, I'm Ripple, so, February 23rd, somewhere between the 23rd and the 4th of 2015. So we obviously went through this story. We're going to try to get it down to a soundbite, but you have made the acquaintance of Dresden's finest.
A few of them.
A few of them. And in this case, the absolute finest officer that we've ever had, the infamous...
I would not call him the finest officer of anything. Maybe a turd wagon.
The infamous Curtis Rogers, and you have made the acquaintance. And we've talked about it, and we've known each other for a while. As I pointed out, we've been doing videos as frequently. And in your case, this was an OVI arrest.
Yes.
So we don't sugarcoat it. I'm really astonished at the lack of the presumption of guilt that a lot of people have when arrests are made. You obviously actually you blew over, so we don't sugarcoat that. But your story is so very consistent with so many stories we've heard about Curtis Rogers and the arrests that have been made, that there were so many things that was improper about the procedure, or there was false charges brought, or it goes on and on and on and on and on, and your story is consistent with that. So you got pulled over. It was February. It was winter. You got pulled over on Chestnut Street. Basically, the pretense was you was left of center.
Got pulled over because it was February. I'm believing it was probably the 24th because it was probably after 1 in the morning.
So it's somewhere between the 23rd and the 24th
Yes.
of February.
Now, last year, if you go back and anybody looks at the records, we had a whole lot of snow.
We had a lot of snow.
And a lot of ice, and there was piles everywhere.
Yeah.
So coming up Chestnut, and people that park on Chestnut, they couldn't pull right over to the curb. So they're setting out farther. So if a car is setting out farther, you don't ride right next to them.
Truth is, you probably actually visually couldn't even see where the center of the road was.
You almost couldn't tell where the center of the road was.
This is a typical small village issue that the pretense was to pull you over because you were going home and you were driving down the street, and you may have actually been left to center because physically, if you weren't left to center, it means you would have been hitting a car somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. So this was the pretense. He pulled you over because he says you were left to center. Now this is where it gets interesting to me. At some point then, he was addressing you. He actually opened up your car door.
I put my window down about 4 inches to where I could hear him fine.
Okay.
My girlfriend's sitting in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
She does not drive.
Okay.
So I put my window down about 4 inches. He wants to talk to me. I said, I can hear you. I step out of the car. I said, I can hear you fine, Kurt. I don't need to step out of the car.
You knew it?
Yes.
So you addressed him by his name?
I addressed him by Kurt. Okay. The whole time I was talking to him, I addressed him by Kurt.
Okay.
He asked me, have you been drinking? I said, earlier in the day, yes. So he says, Jay, step out of the car. I said, Kurt, why do you want me to step out of the car? He says, Jay, step out of the car. I said, Kurt, why do I need to step out of the car? He physically opened my door, grabbed my arm, so I get out of the car.
So he's physically dragging you out of the car. I'm going to have to talk to some of my lawyers about that, but that sounds pretty improper.
I've been through this before, and I know a few lawyers, and you do not have to get out of the car unless they place you under arrest for something. Is exactly what they
say they're going to charge you with something.
Unless they're going to charge you with something, yes.
So he got you out of the car and you went through the marine roll. He wanted to do a field sobriety test.
He wanted to do a field sobriety test.
He wanted to do a field sobriety test standing on a bunch of ice.
We're standing on Chestnut Street, which was covered with ice and snow.
And you basically said, no, I'm not going to do that.
I basically said no. He said, well, step over here to the sidewalk, which the sidewalk was almost worse than what the street was.
Right.
So as we step over to the sidewalk, which I don't know if I'm still on video camera or not, if it's going to see it from the car.
From what I've heard of him taking field sobriety tests, if you passed it, the video would disappear anyway.
So we're over on the sidewalk. I refuse to stand on one leg or walk the line
Right.
because it's all icy and snowy. I'm not going to do it anyway. You know, I work construction. I've worked construction for the last 40 years. I've got bad knees, bad ankles. I'm not doing it.
Not done it.
So
Okay, I understand all that, and it makes perfect sense. So because you refused the field sobriety test, he took you actually immediately into custody.
He told me to, okay, I'm placing you under arrest for an OVI. I'm like, Kurt, just let me go home. I just live down the street. He says, no, I'm placing you under arrest. Put your hands behind your back. I said, Kurt, I just want to go. I live in the Chestnut. Just want to go down the street. Just let me go home. I said, hell, I'll leave the car here and
Right.
I'll walk home.
I'll walk home.
He says, put your hands behind your back. I said, Kurt, let me talk to you. Put your hands behind your back. Jay, put your hands behind your back. About the fourth time I didn't put my hands behind my back, the taser got right here in front of my nose.
So at that point, he pulled the taser on you.
Yeah.
This is consistent too. I've seen this personally, and he has a real lack of training, because every time I've heard this story, if anybody really wanted to, they could have easily took the taser away from me.
It could have been smacked out of his hand.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So he pulls the taser on you. You're not really resisting anything. You're not physically abusive. You're not verbally abusive toward him. You're just trying to convince him that what he's doing isn't necessary. You can walk home or
Exactly.
whatever. And whether you're right or wrong, and you did blow over, the fact is you don't see any justification for the taser at all.
I didn't see any justification, and I'll admit, yes, I blew over.
Right.
There was no justification for me spending 3 days in jail for the resisting arrest, because if I would have resisted him,
Right.
there would have been more than me just putting
So
my hands on my back.
this is a fairly common venue. It's a very common story that, you know, they have something, and if it actually does turn out to be a legitimate arrest, but the point of contentions are here, the initial stop was wrong to begin with, because he cited you, they actually cited you for being left of center.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming when he drove down Chestnut, he was left of center also.
Probably had.
It's not physically impossible not to be left of center.
I still have all my papers at home that
Okay.
I paid my fine for being left of center.
Right. So you got a charge here that's obviously ridiculous, and then you have resisting arrest. And that obviously is very trumped up. From your account, basically you're not verbally or physically threatening the officer anyway. It's not actually that you're not even going to cooperate. You're just trying to talk to him.
Exactly. That's all I was doing, was talking to him.
So ultimately they charged you with left of center, resisting arrest, and the OVI. And the OVI was legitimate by statute because you blew over. The other two issues, in your opinion, actually by your own personal knowledge, are absolutely either ridiculous in the first case, being left of center, or completely false in terms of resisting arrest. And I guess I got to ask you, I don't want to make you feel like myself, I did a dumb thing there. You did plea out, you didn't plead not guilty, you're like most people, you got a job. I assume you had to get back to it at some point. So, in retrospect, it's kind of water under the bridge, but my guess is, from what you told me, is if you had to do it over again, you would not have pled.
If I had it to do over again, I would have not have blown to begin with, and I would have got a lawyer.
Right.
I went in, like I said, it was probably 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. They said I have a court date with the judge at 9.
Who was the judge? Oh, I'm sorry I asked. You don't remember.
I didn't.
I'm curious. I'm always curious because you start seeing personalities in it.
I've got it wrote down. He's a black-haired, curly black-haired guy. And when I went in front of him, I just asked him to be lenient because I have a job, a good job.
Right.
And like I said, I had the OVI. I didn't mind that. I'll do that once in a lifetime. It's done and over with.
It's done and over
The
with.
3 days I did continuous in jail
For resisting
arrest. That's 3 days that I'm holding over Kurt Rogers' head
Yeah.
that I will get back.
That's not right.
I will get back one of these days.
So, you know, you're incredulous that he's still working here, and just like everybody else, and
anybody
you would
that-
like to see some kind of justice in this. That why is he
Anybody
working?
that-
Why has he not been charged for
Yeah.
his criminal activities? And you'd like to see something happen eventually that starts to look like these people aren't above the law.
Yeah.
I got it. Well, I think we covered that.
That is why I would like to go to the city council with you.
Oh, we'll be there.
Meeting.
That'll be the third Monday. We got 3 Mondays to go in January,
Mhm.
and I've let it be known. And of course, this video will probably be up long after that council meeting is over. But we're hoping to film it too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll either get shut down or we'll get what we want out. My attitude is, even if we get shut down, we'll make them shut us down on film. And
The
that'll
thing about
show
it
them
is
to be what they are.
It's public, and
Yeah.
it's public record.
Should
Anything
be
that
a
goes on
public
there.
record. They should, you know. I expect them to have kittens when they realize I'm there actually this time to speak, instead of just make them nervous. But we'll see what happens. Anyhow, I appreciate your being here.
There's no problem.
Well, it's a problem to a lot of people, and I don't necessarily blame them. But you can only imagine, every time we dump one of these online and people are looking at it, I got 12 stories from people that have, some of them have very legitimate reasons. They're scared to do this. So, you know, we don't get, you know, somebody to that's willing to do a video interview for this. Like you see when you got here, I just pointed the board, you know, my one race board out there. It's got about 30 names on it. People look at me and look at it and say, what is that? I said, those are all Curtis Rogers stories. And they just look at it and they say, you gotta be kidding me. I said, hell, think what I could do if I was getting paid
Yeah.
to investigate this. I could probably drink coffee every morning at McDonald's for 3 hours and still get something done.
Unlike our chief.
Well, yeah, we ain't gonna go there, right? Oh, I guess we just did.